Assalamualaikum. My name is Mi Hasmaina binti Sabri. In this presentation, I will discuss three major approaches to learning, which are the cognitive, behaviorist, and humanistic approach. This presentation will cover the key principles, major theories, and core assumptions of each approach. I will also demonstrate how each approach can be applied in a real classroom context and critically discuss one strength and one limitation of each approach. Learning is a complex process that can be explained through different theoretical perspectives. The cognitive approach focuses on mental process such as thinking, remembering, understanding, and problem solving. The behaviorist approach focuses on observable change in behavior through stimulus, response, and reinforcement. Meanwhile, the humanistic approach views learners as whole individuals by considering their emotion, motivation, personal needs, and potential for growth. Understanding this different approach is important because it helps teachers select appropriate pedagogical strategy according to learning objective and student need. The first approach is the cognitive approach. This approach focuses on the mental process that occur when an individual learns, including attention, memory, thinking, understanding, and problem solving. One of its main principles is that learners are not passive recipients of information. Instead, they actively construct knowledge and connect new information with their existing knowledge. A core assumption of this approach is that learning involves internal mental process. This means that the way learners organize and process information influence their level of understanding. Jean Piaget is one of the major theories associated with the cognitive approach. He explained that cognitive development occurs in stage and that the way individuals think develop according to their stage of development. Jerome Bruner also contributes significantly to the cognitive approach. He emphasized discovery learning, in which learners are encouraged to explore and construct their own understanding with guidance from the teacher. To demonstrate the application of the cognitive approach, I will use the example of teaching photosynthesis in a secondary school science class. At the beginning of the lesson, the teacher can activate students' prior knowledge by asking what they already know about the basic needs of plants. Next, the teacher can use diagram or concept maps to help students understand the relationship between sunlight, water, carbon dioxide, and the process of photosynthesis. The teacher can then ask a problem-solving question such as, what might happen if a plant is placed in a dark environment for several days, and why? Students need to use their existing knowledge to make prediction and explain their reasoning. One strength of the cognitive approach is that it encourages critical thinking and promotes deeper understanding rather than simple memorization. However, one limitation is that students have different levels of cognitive ability. Therefore, teachers need to adjust the level of difficulty and provide appropriate guidance according to students' individual needs. The second approach is the behaviorist approach. This approach focuses on change in behavior that can be observed and measured. From the behaviorist perspective, learning occurs through interaction between individuals and their environment. Behavior can be developed or modified through stimulus, response, repetition, and reinforcement. A core assumption of behaviorism is that behavior can be learned and shaped based on experience and the consequences of an individual's action. Ivan Pavlov is well known for the concept of classical conditioning, which demonstrates how a response can be learned through association between stimuli. B.F. Skinner introduced the concept of operant conditioning. He emphasized that the consequence of behavior, particularly reinforcement, can influence whether a particular behavior is likely to occur again. In education, these principles can be applied through praise, immediate feedback, reward, and other forms of reinforcement. For example, an English teacher conduct a weekly vocabulary quiz. When students provide correct answer, demonstrate effort, or show improvement, the teacher provide praise and reward point. In this situation, praise and reward points function as positive reinforcement. When positive behavior is followed by a desirable outcome, students are more likely to repeat that behavior. One strength of the behaviorist approach is that it can be effective in developing positive learning behavior, classroom routine, and discipline. It also allows teachers to provide clear and immediate feedback. However, one limitation is that students may become too dependent on external reward. If the rewards are removed, some students may experience reduced motivation because they have not yet developed intrinsic motivation towards learning. The third approach is the humanistic approach. This approach views students as whole individuals rather than focusing only on their academic achievement. The humanistic approach emphasizes student-centered learning, intrinsic motivation, emotion, individual needs, and the development of personal potential. A core assumption of this approach is that student emotional condition and individuals' need can influence their learning. Learners are also believed to have the potential to grow when they are provided with a safe and supportive learning environment. Abraham Maslow is well known for Maslow's hierarchy of needs. In an educational context, basic needs such as safety, belonging, and esteem are important because they can influence student readiness to learn. Carl Rogers emphasized a student-centered approach and viewed the teacher as a facilitator who creates an empathetic, accepting, and supportive learning environment. For the application of the humanistic approach, I will use an environmental awareness campaign project in a secondary school classroom. In this activity, the teacher does not require every student to complete the assignment in exactly the same format. Instead, students are given the opportunity to choose whether they want to create a poster, video, infographic, or presentation. This choice provides students with autonomy and allow them to learn through methods that are appropriate to their interests and strengths. The teacher acts as a facilitator by providing guidance and support, appreciating students' ideas, and creating a positive learning environment. One strength of the humanistic approach is that it can enhance intrinsic motivation, autonomy, and self-confidence because students feel that they have greater choice and responsibility for their own learning. However, one limitation is that this approach can be challenging to implement in large classrooms because teachers may have limited time to address the individual need of every student. When the three approaches are compared, clear difference can be identified in their focus and explanation of how learning occurs. First, the cognitive approach focuses on mental process and view learners as individuals who actively construct knowledge. Second, the behaviorist approach focuses on observable behavior and explains how the environment and reinforcement can influence learning. Third, the humanistic approach take a more holistic view by emphasizing intrinsic motivation, emotion, autonomy, and personal potential. Although these approaches are different, each provide valuable perspective that can help teacher plan effective teaching and learning experience. In a real classroom context, teachers do not need to use only a learning approach. For example, a teacher can begin a lesson using cognitive principle by activating student prior knowledge and asking questions that encourage higher order thinking. During the learning activity, behaviorist principle can be applied through immediate feedback and positive reinforcement for students' effort and appropriate learning behaviors. At the same time, humanistic principle can be incorporated by providing students with choice, respecting their opinion, and creating a safe and supportive learning environment. Integrating this approach allow teachers to adapt their pedagogy according to learning objective, classroom situation, and the diverse needs of their students. In conclusion, the cognitive, behaviorist, and humanistic approach provide three important perspectives on how learning occurs. The cognitive approach emphasizes thinking and understanding, while the behaviorist approach focuses on the development of behavior through reinforcement. The humanistic approach emphasizes emotions, motivation, and the development of individual potential. Each approach has its own strength and limitation. Therefore, no single approach can be considered appropriate for every learner or every learning situation. An effective teacher should understand each approach and apply them flexibly according to the learning objective, classroom context, and students' needs. By integrating the strengths of different approaches, teaching and learning can become more effective, meaningful, and supportive of student overall development. So, that's all for me for this presentation, and thank you.